The fluorescent lights in delivery room 4 buzzed like dying insects. Lena's fingers were still clutching the edge of the hospital bed. Knuckles bone white, nails cracked, her wedding ring cutting in his swollen skin. When the nurse finally looked up from the bassinet with that face nurses learn in their 2nd year of training. The one that means don't make them ask. Mrs. Calloway. She already knew. A mother knows before the words form. But she still waited. Because somewhere in the room, her husband Marcus was supposed to be standing, holding her hand, breathing through this with her. She turned. The chair beside her was empty. His jacket was gone. His phone, which had been ringing every 7 minutes for the last 2 hours, was gone. The designer overnight bag he'd packed with protein bars and a cashmere blanket was gone. Marcus Calloway, founder of Callaway Tech, a man Forbes had called the most formidable disruptor of his generation, had left. He left while the doctor was still trying to save their son. He left while Lena was still pushing. He left, and he did not come back. That was the night Amara Calloway, 5 pounds, 2 ounces, born still and perfect, came into a world that never got to hold her. And it was the night Lena stopped being the woman who needed saving. 18 months later, the courthouse steps were slick with February rain. Lena didn't run. She walked, slow, deliberate, her black coat buttoned to the throat, her heels striking the marble like she owned the building. Behind her, 3 lawyers in press suits struggled to keep pace. Ahead of her, through the glass doors, Marcus Calloway sat in a mahogany chair beside a legal team that cost more per hour than most people made in a month. He saw her through the glass. He looked away first. Lena noticed. She always noticed now. Let me take you back. Because you need to understand what this woman survived before you understand what she destroyed. Lena Osei was 26 when she met Marcus Calloway at a startup pitch competition in Austin. She was presenting her app, a mental health platform for Black women in corporate spaces, bootstrapped on her teacher's salary and 3 Max credit cards. He was a judge. He didn't fund her app.
Thank you.
He asked for her number instead. She said no twice. The 3rd time, he showed up at her classroom, with coffee and a business plan he drafted for her idea. Unsolicited. Meticulous. Brilliant. I don't invest in things I don't believe in, he said. And I believe in this. And I believe in you. She should have noticed, even then, that he said this before he said you. They were married in 18 months. It was the wedding her mother cried through. Not from happiness, though she was happy. From awe. Because Lena had grown up in a 2-bedroom apartment in southwest Atlanta with a window unit that only worked on one side. And now she was standing in a vineyard in Tuscany in a dress that cost more than her mother's car. Marcus gave her everything, which is how she didn't notice, at first, when he started taking things away. It started small. The app she'd built, her app, quietly absorbed in a Callaway Tech's portfolio. Marcus assured her it was protection, tax efficiency, better resources. She'd keep creative control. She signed the paperwork at dinner, between courses, while he ordered for her, in Italian, she didn't speak. Then came the NDA. Standard, he said. Every spouse of a C-suite executive signed one. She was on the board now, technically. It was about protecting trade secrets. She signed. Then the joint account. Then the advisory role she never remembered agreeing to. But there was her signature. Then the slow, polite dismantling of every friendship she had that he hadn't pre-approved. Maya makes you anxious. Have you noticed that? Your sister means well, but she's not where you are anymore, babe. I'm not telling you who to see. I'm just saying, I worry about your energy. He never raised his voice. He never had to. He was an architect. He just quietly renovated her until she couldn't find the original floor plan. When she got pregnant, she thought, this will fix it. She knew even as she thought it that it was wrong. That you don't fix a fracture with a child. But she was so tired trying to name what was wrong. Tired of sounding ungrateful. Tired of his publicist sister sending her articles about how to support your visionary husband. So she held a pregnancy test in their marble bathroom at 6 a.m. and cried. Half from joy, half from a grief she couldn't name yet. And when Marcus saw the test on the counter, he smiled the smile she'd fallen in love with and said, good. An heir. Not a baby. Not our child. An heir. She told herself she'd misheard. The pregnancy was hard. She was sick through the 2nd trimester, exhausted through the 3rd. Marcus hired a night nurse before the baby was even born. So you can rest, he said, and scheduled a board meeting for the week of her due date because these things never happen on time. The board meeting was in Singapore. When her contractions started at 3 a.m. on a Tuesday, Marcus was still in Singapore. He was on a plane by 4. He landed at 11. He made it to the hospital by 1 p.m., 17 hours in her labor, 3 hours before everything went wrong. He held her hand. For a while. She doesn't remember exactly when she started screaming for the doctor. She remembers the monitor. She remembers the number dropping. She remembers a nurse running. She remembers Marcus standing up, and his phone ringing, and him stepping into the hallway. Just for a second, it's the Singapore deal. I'll be right back. And then the hours blurred. And then the chair was empty. And then the nurse had that face. She held Amara for 40 minutes. She memorized her. The curve of her ear. The impossible softness of her hair. The way her fingers had already curled into tiny fists, like she'd been ready to fight for something. I'm sorry, Lena whispered into her daughter's forehead. I'm so sorry I couldn't keep you safer. Nobody came to take Amara away. They let Lena decide when. She stayed until she couldn't anymore. Then she walked out into the hallway, barefoot, in a hospital gown, for still in her arm. And she called Marcus. It went to voicemail. She called again. Voicemail. She called a third time and left the only message she would ever leave him. 7 seconds of silence. And then she hung up. He texted 4 hours later. Couldn't handle it. I'm sorry. I'm the Ritz. Come when you're ready. She read that message 11 times. She has never responded to it. If you've ever watched someone rebuild from nothing, hit subscribe. Because what Lena does next will leave you speechless. This story is just getting started. She didn't go to the Ritz. She called her mother. Dorothy Osei drove 4 hours from Atlanta in the middle of the night in a 09 Camry with a cracked windshield. And when she walked into that hospital room and saw her daughter, sitting up straight in the bed, face dry, eyes somewhere between empty and decided, she didn't say anything for a long time. She just sat down next to her and took her hand. Mama, Lena said, and her voice didn't crack.
Mama,
it dropped.
I need a lawyer.
Dropped to somewhere very quiet and very certain. I need a lawyer. Dorothy looked at her. Baby, I know what I just did. She turned and met her mother's eyes. I need a lawyer. The lawyer she found was named Claudette Marsh. Claudette was 53 years old, wore natural hair and orthopedic shoes, and had never lost a high-asset divorce case in 11 years of practice. She took one meeting with Lena, listened for 40 minutes without writing a single note, and then said, How long have you been planning this? Lena said, Since the moment I signed the NDA. Claudette smiled. Good. Because he's going to say you signed everything voluntarily. So we need to prove the environment in which you signed it. Coercive control, Lena said. She'd been reading. You've been reading. For 8 months. Claudette leaned back. Tell me about the app. Here's what Marcus Calloway did not account for when he absorbed Lena's mental health platform into his company. She had kept every draft, every prototype, every email chain, every pitch deck she'd built before she ever met him. The intellectual property of Sola, her app, her concept, her 3-year-old brainchild, predated their marriage by 14 months. It predated Calloway Tech's acquisition of it by 2 years. And buried in the terms of that acquisition, signed at dinner between courses, was a clause Marcus's lawyers had apparently overlooked, or dismissed, or assumed a woman eating truffle pasta wouldn't catch. In the event of dissolution of the marriage, all premarital intellectual property reverts to its original creator. Claudette found it on a Thursday afternoon. She called Lena at 6 p.m. You need to sit down. I'm sitting down. Sola, Claudette said, is currently the backbone algorithm of Callaway Tech's entire wellness division. Their fastest growing vertical. Valued last quarter at, a pause, paper rustling, $340 million. Lena was quiet for so long that Claudette said her name twice. Lena, I'm here. This is your company. Your concept. Your code. He built an empire on your foundation and didn't tell you. Another silence. Then, very quietly, he ordered for me in Italian. What? Nothing. Keep going. Marcus's legal team was 15 people. They filed every motion available. They challenged the clause. They argued integration, transformation, good faith acquisition. They submitted 47 exhibits and 3 expert witnesses. Claudette submitted the original source code, timestamp from a GitHub repository Lena had created in 2019, 18 months before she'd ever shaken Marcus Calloway's hand. The judge looked at the timestamp. The judge looked at Marcus. Marcus was looking at his phone. The moment that happens next in that courtroom will make you stand up. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications. You do not want to miss part 2 of this story. This is just the beginning of what Lena built from the ashes. But before the verdict, before the moment everything collapsed for Marcus Calloway and opened like a door for Lena, there was a deposition. Marcus sat across a conference table from Lena for the first time in 14 months. He looked good. He always looked good. Navy suit, fresh fade, the easy confidence of a man who had never once in his life doubted he would walk out of a room winning. He looked at her for a long moment, and something moved through his face, something almost human, almost like regret. And then he said, "You didn't have to do this." Lena kept her hands flat on the table. "I know. I gave you everything." She nodded slowly. "You did. You gave me things. But I want to be clear about something, Marcus." She leaned forward just slightly. "You gave me things. I built something. There's a difference. And I think somewhere in the last 4 years, you forgot which one of us was which." His jaw tightened. "I lost a child," she said, and her voice was very steady and very terrible. "I was alone in that hospital room, and you were at the Ritz." He opened his mouth. "Don't," she said. "I'm not asking you to explain. I don't want your explanation. I'm simply telling you, so you understand exactly what you are sitting across from today. I am not the woman you married. That woman needed you to believe in her. I don't need that anymore." She sat back. "I believe in myself." The deposition lasted 6 hours. Lena cried once, when Claudette's associate read the hospital records into evidence. The time of death, the weight, the name, Amara Joelle Calloway. Born still, 11:47 p.m. She let herself cry for 45 seconds. Then she dried her face, asked for water, and continued. Marcus did not look at her during those 45 seconds. He looked at the table, and Lena watched him look at the table, and she felt something she hadn't expected. Pity. Brief, clean, unwanted. Gone by the time the next question was asked. The night before the verdict, Lena sat in her mother's kitchen in Atlanta. She'd moved back 6 months earlier, into her childhood bedroom with a window unit that only worked on one side, and she ate jollof rice and watched Dorothy iron a blouse and said, "What if it doesn't work?" Dorothy didn't look up from the iron. "Then you start again." "I've been starting again for 2 years." "Then you're already good at it." Lena watched steam rise from the collar of the blouse. "I'm scared." "Of what?" "That I'm doing this for the wrong reasons. That it's not about the company, it's about—" She stopped. Dorothy set down the iron. She looked at her daughter with the particular clarity of a woman who has watched someone she loves nearly disappear. "Baby, you built something. He took it. You want it back. That's not revenge. That's property law." Lena laughed. A short, startled, real laugh. The first one in a while. "Property law," she repeated. "And also," Dorothy picked up the iron again, "a little bit of revenge. But mostly property law." The judge's ruling took 22 minutes to read aloud. Lena sat with her hands in her lap and her back straight, and her face absolutely still. Intellectual property. Reversion upheld. Sola platform. Returned to Lena Osei Calloway. Wellness division valuation at time of filing. $347 million. Lena's share, controlling interest, per the original acquisition clause. Calloway Tech, which had structured its last 3 funding rounds around a wellness vertical, would need to restructure entirely. The board would need to respond. Investors would need to be notified. Marcus Calloway would need to explain to 15 people who had trusted him how he had built a company on a foundation that was never legally his. Outside the courthouse, in the February rain, a journalist pushed a microphone toward Lena's face. "Ms. Osei, how does it feel?" She looked at the microphone. She looked at the cameras. She thought about a woman in a hospital gown, standing in a hallway with an 4 in her arm, calling a number that went to voicemail. She thought about 40 minutes with Amara. The tiny curled fists. The weight of her. The unbearable, perfect weight of her. "It feels," Lena said carefully, "like the beginning." She walked to the car. Her mother was waiting. 3 months later, Sola relaunched. Not as a subsidiary. Not as a vertical. As its own company, independent, with Lena Osei as founder and CEO. The platform she had built at 24, bootstrapped on a teacher's salary and 3 max credit cards, was back in her hands. She hired Maya first, her old friend, the one Marcus had said made her anxious. Maya walked into the new office, looked around, and said, "You did it, you absolute menace." Lena said, "We're just getting started." Calloway Tech announced a restructuring 8 weeks after the ruling. Marcus stepped down from the board 6 weeks after that. The press called it a strategic transition. His publicist's sister released a statement. 3 think pieces were written. A podcast episode. A LinkedIn post from a venture capitalist about the importance of airtight IP agreements. Lena didn't read any of it. She was in a meeting. She was always in a meeting now. On the 1-year anniversary of Amara's birth and death, Lena sat alone in the office after everyone had gone home, and she opened a drawer, and she took out a photograph. She hadn't taken it. A nurse had, quietly without being asked. A small kindness Lena still thought about. Amara. 5 pounds, 2 ounces. Curled fists. Perfect ear. "Hey, baby," Lena whispered.
"Hey, baby.
"Look what we built." She sat there for a while. Then she put the photograph back carefully, turned off the light, and locked the door. She never did go to the Ritz. Part 2. The Board Fights back drops next week. Subscribe now and turn on notifications. You will not want to miss what Marcus does when he realizes Lena is just getting started. Comment below. Did Lena deserve everything she won? Or was there a moment you thought she'd gone too far? Tell me below. I read every single one.